Elijah Carter had been rehearsing all week for tonight's showcase. From his first breath as a child in his grandmother's kitchen, he'd moved to music, his sneakers squeaking on laminate floors, his body weaving stories of joy and struggle. Now, at 22 and freshly graduated from a top dance conservatory, he carried not only technique but the fire of his ancestors in each step. He was ready to share that fire at Club Étoile, the city's most exclusive dance lounge, where only the glitterati had ever commanded the mirrored floor. By 10 p.m., the line snaked down Crescent Avenue, neon pulsing off the black glass facade. Elijah arrived in a crisp white shirt and tailored charcoal blazer, an outfit chosen to reflect the cool confidence he felt in his bones. His friends Bianca and Marco fell into step beside him, marveling at the glittering stanchions and the bouncer's sculpted arms. Outside, the bass throbbed like a living thing, promising a night of transcendence. They reached the velvet rope where a broad-shouldered doorman in a perfectly pressed suit peered at Elijah through narrow eyes. He scanned Elijah's face, then the bright blue invitation card in Elijah's hand, and frowned. Bianca and Marco presented their cards without hesitation. The doorman ushered them inside with a polite nod. But when Elijah held out his card, the man's stoicism hardened. "I'm sorry, sir," the doorman said, voice low and measured. "No, this event is by invitation only." He turned the card over and over, brow furrowing ever so slightly. "I'll need another form of ID." Elijah offered his driver's license, its photograph crisp and unmistakable. The doorman flipped it back to him without looking. "Again, I'm sorry. You'll need to wait for your host." Elijah's chest tightened. "My name is on the list. I'm here to perform." His voice was calm but insistent. Inside, the throbbing house music seemed to slow, each beat a mocking challenge. The doorman straightened his posture. "I don't make the rules," he said. "Please wait over there." He gestured to a narrow alcove beside the entrance, a space that felt more like an antechamber to exile than a waiting area. Bianca stepped forward. "There must be a mistake. He's the headline performer." Her protest dissolved at the guard's impassive stare. Marco's jaw clenched. "You can't do this." He reached for Elijah's arm, but Elijah gently shook him off. The guard's eyes flicked to Marco's hand. "Please step back," he warned. Defeated, Elijah sank onto a low bench. Through the glass doors, he watched Bianca and Marco disappear into the club, their silhouettes swallowed by pulsing lights. A knot of humiliation formed in his gut as he fingered the edges of the invitation card, its embossed gold lettering mocking him. Étoile presents Elijah Carter. Minutes passed like hours. Outside, other hopefuls lingered. Couples in glittering evening wear, social media influencers adjusting poses. No one else seemed to notice the young black man forced to wait under the unforgiving street lamp. When a sleek black SUV pulled up and a sharply dressed host emerged, he paused at the doorman, mouthed a single word, then entered. Elijah caught his eye. The host's expression flickered with recognition. Then he turned away. Elijah rose, shoulders square. He pressed his gloved hands into his blazer pockets and walked toward Bianca's message on his phone. "I'm inside. They've given you a special VIP table." "Hurry up," he typed back. "Blocked. Wait for me outside." Outside the club's back entrance, the alley was quiet, lit only by a sputtering neon sign. Elijah's heart pounded as he peeled off his blazer, revealing the fitted black shirt and dance sneakers beneath. He looked down the alley's exit toward the street beyond and saw, just around the corner, a wrought iron gate leading to the private courtyard where VIP guests were shuttled in limousines. Guards flanked that gate too. But there was no velvet rope there, only a narrow stone path and the promise of an unguarded dance floor beyond. Clutching his blazer like a shield, Elijah swallowed hard. The night had begun with an exclusion that stung like ice, but his resolve burned hotter. He knew every step of the choreography he had prepared, every beat of the song he'd rehearsed until his blisters bled. Tonight, he would find his way onto that floor, whether through the velvet rope or by rewriting the rules altogether. And as the bass thudded a muted promise through the club's walls, Elijah Carter squared his shoulders, ready to transform their prejudice into the very stage where it would be crushed. Elijah pressed his back against the cool brick wall of the alley, heart pounding to the distant thump of the bass inside Club Étoile. He peeled off his blazer, rolling its sleeves until he stood in a sleek black shirt and his signature high-top sneakers, the same outfit he'd chosen so he could move freely. Taking a steadying breath, he edged along the fire escape until he found a rusted service door labeled Staff Only. The lock was old. Within seconds, a silent click gave way to a narrow opening. Inside, the corridor smelled of stale smoke and spilled spirits. Fluorescent lights flickered overhead, revealing a tangle of cables and scuffed concrete floors. He slipped past a stack of empty kegs and followed the low hum of the DJ booth upstairs. A maintenance ladder led to a narrow trapdoor just below the floorboards of the lounge. His ticket onto the stage. Climbing cautiously, Elijah emerged behind the DJ's turntables. The DJ, a tattooed woman with bright purple hair, spun vinyl without looking back. She paused mid-mix when she saw him. "Who are you?" she snapped, her voice lost beneath the wobble of the sub-bass. "Elijah Carter," he said, producing the embossed invitation card. "I'm your headline dancer." Her eyes flicked to the card, then to the stage lights, dancing across the smoke machine haze. She hesitated, then, with a wry grin, swiveled her headphones around her neck. "You've got 60 seconds. Make them count." Elijah nodded and stepped onto the stage, the boards vibrating under his feet. The lights shifted to a cool blue as the DJ dropped into a deep house track. The crowd on the dance floor stared up in confusion. Who was this newcomer? But as Elijah launched into a fluid combination of popping, locking, and his own signature wave spin, jaws began to drop. His arms rippled like liquid, feet tapped intricate rhythms, and every gesture punctuated the song's crescendo. The room fell into a hush of awe, beats still pulsing, the fog swirling, until Elijah's final move, a gravity-defying backflip that landed him squarely in the DJ's crossfade. A single spotlight hit his outstretched hand as the crowd erupted. Champagne bottles popped, cell phones lit up like fireflies. The doorman, alerted by the commotion, pushed through the staff corridor and stood gaping at the spectacle. The black dancer he'd barred had commandeered the very stage he'd keep guarded. On the strength of that performance, club management rushed down, pressing a microphone into Elijah's hand. Over the roar of applause, the MC's voice boomed, "Ladies and gentlemen, Elijah Carter." Security guards parted, ushering him into the VIP area, as Bianca and Marco rushed forward with proud grins. Even the bouncer at the main entrance hurried over, extending a hand in respect. Moments after his unscheduled debut, Elijah found himself in the owner's office, walls lined with gold records and photos of past DJs. The owner, eyes shining, offered him a glass of champagne. "You've earned every square inch of that floor," he said. "Consider this your new home." As he rejoined his friends on the dance floor, no longer an outsider but its undeniable centerpiece, Elijah felt a surge of vindication. By refusing to be silenced, he had rewritten the rules of Club Étoile, transforming their prejudice into the very spotlight that celebrated his talent. And in every cheering voice and flashing camera light, he sensed something deeper, the power of art to shatter barriers and invite every soul, regardless of color, to dance together under one spotlight. The morning after his spontaneous takeover, Elijah Carter woke to the soft glow of dawn slanting through the slatted blinds of his modest apartment. His muscles ached pleasantly from the gravity-defying moves he'd unleashed on Club Étoile's polished floor. But it was his spirit that pulsed most strongly, alive with possibility. He checked his phone, a dozen missed calls, 50 texts, and 2 voicemail messages. Bianca's first text read, "You're a legend. Call me ASAP." Marco's reply added, "We need to celebrate and plan next steps." He dialed Bianca, who answered breathlessly. "Eli, they want you on Night Beats tonight," she exclaimed. "The club's PR team called. They say you saved the venue's flagship showcase." Elijah closed his eyes and let the magnitude settle in. A week ago, he'd barely been allowed past the velvet rope. Now, the very guardians of that rope were inviting him in. By late afternoon, he arrived at Club Étoile, not to beg for entry, but to prepare for interview lights and camera setups. The main lounge, once a fortress of exclusion, had been rearranged. The roped-off VIP area was removed, the dress code relaxed, and an ornate bronze plaque now hung by the entrance. Club Étoile, welcoming all talents. He was led backstage to a small media room where producers fussed over mics and monitors. Across the hall, dancers who had once eyed him with suspicion now smiled and greeted him as a peer. He found the DJ, still perched high above the dance floor, who clasped his shoulder. "I better sit for this one," she laughed, pointing to a director's chair. "They'll want your story." When Elias E-Star Monroe, host of Night Beats, ushered him on set, the cameras rolled under a constellation of spotlights. In a sleek leather chair, Eli faced the host, the club's shimmering bar behind him. E-Star leaned forward. "Elijah, you stormed our stage literally overnight. Tell us, What drove you to break the rules? Elijah thought of the velvet snub, of tinted windows and stony stairs. I dance because my body remembers joy and pain in equal measure, he said, voice steady. When they barred me from sharing that truth, I knew the real barrier was fear. Fear of what people think of me, not what I can offer them. The audience of club stalwarts and late-night viewers erupted in applause. Social media feeds lit up with the clip. Hashtag Eli at Etoile trended regionally within the hour. Over the next days, ripples spread beyond the club's neon confines. A local dance academy invited Elijah to guest teach a workshop in Urban Storytelling Through Movement. A nonprofit arts collective commissioned him to choreograph an original piece for their upcoming gala. Even Club Etoile's owners convened a creative advisory board that included Elijah, tasked with programming diverse performers and ensuring the club remained a beacon of inclusivity. One cool evening, Bianca and Marco accompanied him back to Etoile for the board's first meeting. Seated at a circular mahogany table polished by decades of industry insiders were club executives, booking agents, and two emerging DJs. At the head sat Elijah himself, no longer a late-night interloper, but the architect of a new ethos. He cleared his throat. We've redefined what exclusivity means, he began. Etoile should be a launchpad for every voice, every style. Let's commit to monthly showcases spotlighting underrepresented dancers, hip-hop crews, queer ballroom icons, classical fusion soloists, so no talent ever feels unwelcome again. Nods of approval rippled around the table. One executive sketched a calendar. Another opened her laptop to draft a marketing campaign. Etoile unlocked, a stage for every story. Later, as he stepped onto the revamped dance floor, now unguarded and glowing beneath washlights, Elijah felt the thrum of fresh beats in his veins. Friends and strangers alike gathered in a circle, cheering as he led an impromptu cipher. Each dancer fed off his energy, a pop lock here, a floor spin there, a flutter of toes that spoke of unbridled freedom. The prejudice that had once barred him evaporated in the heat of collective expression. That night he slipped away onto the rain-slick pavement, breathless and alive. He looked back through the glass doors and saw a new banner draped above the entrance. Club Etoile Présence. Unlocked. Every Thursday, all voices welcomed. As he walked home under the city lights, Elijah realized his single act of defiance had become a catalyst for cultural transformation, proof that when one dancer refuses to be confined, an entire dance floor can learn to move together in harmony. 2 weeks after the impromptu takeover, Elijah Carter arrived at Club Etoile, not as an upstart, interloper, but as a partner in its reinvention. A sweeping glass door now bore the etched words Etoile Unlocked, every voice, every style, and beneath them stood a bronze plaque listing the club's creative advisory board members. Elijah's name glittering in bold relief alongside the owners, the head DJs, and two emerging choreographers. Elijah pushed through the crowd of thrilled dancers, VIP patrons, and curious clubgoers, finding the board's first meeting convening in a private loft overlooking the main floor. Exposed brick walls vibrated with the deep house mix below, while plush leather sofas and a long wooden table made the space feel both elegant and approachable. He settled into the head chair, scanning the faces around him. Bianca beaming with excitement, Marco running his fingers through his hair in anticipation, the head DJ, headphones draped like a halo, the club's bookings manager and a local fashion photographer turned talent scout. Tonight, Elijah began, voice steady over the hum of retuning monitors, we launch our first Unlocked showcase. 6 acts, each bringing a different tradition of movement to this floor. We'll open with Solana's Afro-Fusion troupe, then a queer ballroom exhibition, followed by flamenco, contemporary, crump, and closing with my own freestyle ensemble. He slid a glossy schedule across the table, each name embossed in vibrant color. The bookings manager raised an eyebrow. Some Monday regulars are worried about the change. Attendance dips for non-EDM nights. He tapped his finger. Will this hybrid risk our core crowd? Elijah met his gaze. This is how we expand our core. We'll integrate each act into a seamless set, bridging rhythms so the energy never drops. We'll also provide free dance lessons in the lounge before doors open, inviting our regulars to learn from the performers. He tapped his shoe on the floor, imprinting a dancer's rhythm in the air. When people move together, barriers dissolve. A murmur of approval rippled through the group. The head DJ nodded. I'll weave live samples from each act into a custom mix, so the ballad flows into the tango, and by the time we hit the last beat, the club is one unified pulse. Bianca beamed. I've secured press coverage with City Arts Weekly, and influencers are already talking about number unlocked étoile. We'll sell out before midnight. Marco chimed in. I've lined up local videographers to capture each performance for our social channels. This isn't just a show, it's a movement. They spent the next hour hashing out logistics, sound checks, stage lighting cues, social media teasers, and dancer green rooms. Each decision reflected Elijah's insistence on equity, shared dressing areas, equal pay for all acts, and a dedicated community ticket block for neighborhood youth groups. By the time they adjourned, the air crackled with creative electricity. That evening, Elijah watched from the DJ booth as the club's floor filled with eager faces. The pre-show salsa lesson, the first cross-genre experiment, brought margarita-sipping regulars and curious newcomers together in laughter. Then Solana's dancers swept onto the stage, their bodies arcing in hypnotic tribal patterns that echoed through the walls. The spotlight shifted seamlessly to the ballroom performers, heels clicking against the floor in perfect sync, astonished gasps rising from the crowd. As the night unfolded, each act built upon the last. A flamenco dancer's staccato footwork gave way to a contemporary duo's fluid lifts. The room throbbed with Crump's raw intensity before transplanting that energy into Elijah's freestyle finale. When he beckoned everyone forward, regulars hand in hand with first-timers, the entire dance floor became a single, heaving organism. Under strobe lights and the DJ's masterful mix, laughter and shouts of delight wove through the music. By 2 a.m., sweat-slicked bodies lounged on sofas, sharing water bottles and high-fives. The bookings manager approached Elijah, eyes shining. You're right. We didn't lose our crowd. We grew it. Elijah grinned, muscles still humming. This is only the beginning, he said, scanning the exhausted but elated performers. Unlocked means we never close the door on talent. Ever. As the club emptied into the humid city night, Club Étoile's new heartbeat pulsed in every step, every shared smile, and every story told on that reclaimed dance floor. Proof that when one dancer dares to smash the velvet rope, an entire institution can learn to move together in harmony. 6 months after the inaugural Unlocked showcase, Club Étoile pulsed with a new, unmistakable energy. Every Thursday, its polished floor welcomed dancers of every discipline. Toddler ballet troupes performing pirouettes beside veteran tap artists, classical pianists improvising duets with street hip-hop crews, and local drag performers weaving voguing flamboyance into contemporary choreography. Elijah Carter arrived early on a crisp spring evening to oversee the club's newest initiative, the Étoile Academy of Movement, a free weekly masterclass series for underprivileged youth in partnership with the Creative Advisory Board. 6 p.m. Opening ceremony. Elijah stepped onto the stage under a soft wash of amber light, greeted by a packed crowd of aspiring dancers, proud parents, and club regulars. He paused at the mic, recalling the day he'd been barred at the velvet rope, confined outside where the beat still throbbed. Now, here he stood, not as an outsider, but as a doorway. Étoile Academy is our gift to the community, he said. Every Monday you'll learn, from hip-hop to contemporary, jazz to house, all within these walls. No invitation required, just the courage to step inside. 6:15 p.m. Workshop rotation. Begins across 4 open studios, instructors-led rotating workshops, Bianca teaching fluid floor work, Marco guiding foot-stomping stomp and clap foundations, a guest ballroom champion demonstrating elegance in motion, and a wheelchair dancer from the Paralympic circuit adapting music to kinetic artistry. Elijah circulated among them, offering tips on musicality and technique, igniting confidence in the youngest students whose eyes widened as he corrected a posture or praised a daring spin. 7:30 p.m. Panel discussion. Breaking barriers through dance. Under a vaulted loft ceiling, a panel convened. Elijah, the head DJ, a local arts education director, and a youth academy graduate who'd earned a scholarship to a prestigious dance conservatory. The moderator asked, how do we ensure accessibility remains at Étoile's core? Voices rose in unison. Commitment to ongoing funding, partnerships with after-school programs, and a scholarship fund seeded by a portion of unlocked ticket sales. The youth graduate spoke passionately. For the first time, I felt my story mattered here. That changes everything. 8:15 p.m. Unlocked. Showcase. The main floor's lights dimmed, replaced by a cascade of colored beams. Solana's Afrofusion ensemble reopened the showcase, their drum-powered rhythms surging through the speakers. Next came a blind dance artist who translated sound into tactile movement, followed by a capoeira rota, electrifying the crowd with martial dance finesse. A fusion flamenco quartet spun into contemporary breakdance, each performer feeding off the last's energy until they merged in a final improvised tableau. The audience roared as Elijah and Marco closed the showcase with a synchronized piece blending popping, voguing, and classical lines, proof that boundaries yield to creativity. 9:45 p.m. The Community Dance Circle. As the formal showcase concluded, Elijah invited everyone onto the floor, students, instructors, VIP guests, and the curious passerby drawn by the beat. The DJ cued an uplifting track, and the circle began. Dancers of all levels passing moves in succession, celebrating shared expression. Tears and laughter mingled as barriers evaporated under the rhythm's embrace. 10:30 p.m. Legacy Reflection backstage. Elijah removed his jacket, sweat damp and triumphant. Bianca returned his water bottle, and Marco rested a hand on his shoulder. They exchanged a look of deep pride. This was bigger than any solo performance. In the hallway, a wall-mounted screen scrolled snapshots of Etoile's evolution. The velvet-roped entrance transformed, the crowd demographic diversifying. Social media testimonials of lives changed, culminating in a quote from the city's mayor. Etoile is not just a club. It is the city's soul on display. 11 p.m. Closing the door on the past. As the last student departed, Elijah paused at the exit, running his finger along the etched glass. Every voice, every style. He thought of the boy he'd been, knocked back at the door, silent under the guard's stare. Now, he stood unbound, the guardian of a space where no dream was denied. He whispered to the glass, "Thank you for teaching me to demand my place." Walking into the cool night air, Elijah felt the legacy he'd helped forge extend far beyond the club. In community centers, hosting satellite unlocked nights, in local schools, adopting movement curricula based on Etoile's model, and in the hearts of every dancer who'd found their story under those lights. And as he stepped into the city's hum, he carried with him the lesson that true transformation begins when one person dares to crash the velvet rope, and then builds a stage where everyone can soar,